Silver Surfer is a notoriously hard NES game. Hard, yes. Impossible? No. I'm Cyberphile, and I'm here to help you beat Silver Surfer. This footage comes from my Twitch channel, so feel free to follow me over there at twitch.tv/cyberphiletv, where I'll be streaming tough games and whatever else I feel like on the weekends. Without further ado, let's get into it. Silver Surfer is a tough-as-nails shoot-'em-up consisting of both top-down and side-scrolling stages. Like Mega Man, you can tackle these stages in any order, with the exception of the boss stage, which opens up last. This setup is great for practicing the stages you're having trouble with, which you'll have to do. A lot. Silver Surfer is not the kind of game you can beat on your very first try. For starters, there are limited continues, so until you get good at it, be prepared to game over and start from scratch. Each stage consists of 3 sections, one side-scrolling stage, one top-down stage, and a side-scrolling boss stage. Personally, I like to start a Reptile and work my way clockwise, but each first section is not too terribly hard. Except Mephisto. Okay, before we get started with the stage-by-stage, let's talk about Silver Surfer's power-ups, because without them, you're screwed. Your firepower is denoted by these 5 circles here. Collecting Fs power you up so that you can shoot faster and deal more damage. Very important, but not nearly as important as pods. These pods are the most important, and probably the most interesting part of Silver Surfer. By collecting one of these on a side-scrolling stage, you'll get an extra shooter, and on a top-down stage, you can get up to 2 extra shots. What makes these interesting, other than just giving you more raw damage, is that using the B button allows you to change the location of your pod, and by extension, the direction of your shot. On side-scrolling stages, you can toggle between shooting forward, down, and backwards. On top-down stages, you can shoot forwards, to your sides, and backwards. Getting good at juggling which shot to use when will lead you to victory. Bs are bombs, and they allow you to clear all enemies and bullets on screen. Each life starts you with 1, and using them at the right time can change the tide of a stage. In a shoot-'em up, bombs are basically extra lives, so if you think you're going to die, just spend one to prolong your run. Finally, the S's. A colored-in S will give you a speed upgrade, which can be good or bad sometimes, while a silver S is an extra life. What makes Silver Surfer so difficult is that dying forfeits all your power-ups, so starting with nothing mid-stage can be really tough sometimes. Luckily, any power-ups you complete a stage with will follow you into the next one. Okay, let's start with the stage-by-stage. We're going to start with Reptile. This is a fairly straightforward stage, and it allows us to talk about the Surfer's greatest weakness: walls. Maneuvering is pretty tight, and smacking off of nearly anything will kill you. The Surfer can only take 1 hit before he dies, whether it's a bullet, an enemy, or a wall, so be really careful about where you're surfing. And one more tip: never stop shooting. Just mash that A button. Hell, set a turbo button if you want, just keep shooting. Section 1 of Reptile is a fairly straightforward, side-scrolling stage. Just stay low and keep firing, collecting pickups along the way. Straight away, you'll score your first pod in F. When you reach the bridge, pull up a bit as 3 fish are going to swim from behind you. You could adjust your pod and shoot backwards, but that middle fish has another F, so if you let them pass and then lay into them, you'll get another power-up. When you reach the next structure, get ready for a lizard man who shoots very quickly and has a pretty good chance of shooting right in between your 2 shots, so it's better to pull up and dodge it, then kill him for another F. Quickly pull up from the water and destroy the lower of the 2 lizard men for yet another F, which should now power you up to 100%. Now head back down into the water and destroy the fish coming at you, who will jump up and out of the water, then back in, which is a pattern that can be tough to avoid, especially if you stay high. It's ideal to destroy them before they jump. When the 3 ducks zoom in, destroy them for another B. Then just cruise below and destroy fish to progress. Go up and around the structure and remain in the lower section for the easiest time. In the next pond, 3 fish can be destroyed for another F if you need it, and a B. Go up, avoid the frogs' tongues, then dive back down into the water. As soon as you destroy the fish, rush forward to collect your second pod before it despawns. While it won't matter on this side-scrolling stage, it'll be nice to start the stage with maximum firepower. Juke around the frogs to head to an underwater tunnel and start blasting. When you come up, stay high and prepare for the mini-boss. The sooner you kill him, the better. The jumping fish will spawn from underneath him, and they're really hard to avoid while blasting him. Once you've killed him, it's on to section 2. This section is no joke. There are a lot of enemies, their bullets are really small, and the background is pretty distracting. Luckily, there's no parts of the stage to run into, so feel free to maneuver as needed. The first group of enemies come in from the left and will net you a speed-up power-up. Some turrets shoot missiles that split into 2, while the small purple turrets launch small, very hard-to-see bullets. Staying left is generally advised when you can help it. The red bubbles on top of structures will generally net you Fs. The last missile launcher on the left will also get you another pod if you need it. After you grab that pod, stay left as a fast-moving group of enemies flies in from the right, and sometimes full power isn't enough to stop them. If you stay left, you'll find another pod drop from a small purple turret. At this point, it's time to stay near the center of the stage and blast everything as it appears. When you get to the third red bubble thing, be careful not to shoot it, as it'll launch an attack at you if you do. Bear right here, and if you can defeat the next row of orange enemies coming down to the right, you can get an extra life. Afterwards, turtles will spawn in, many of which contain Fs. Finally, you'll come across the boss turtle. If you have at least one pod, aim so that 2 of your shots lay into him, and you should also end up destroying any additional turtles he spawns. With this, you'll head to section 3. Boss stages are always side-scrolling and tend to be mercifully short. This one is no exception. It features fast-flying pterodactyl enemies in the upper half of the stage and quick fish on the bottom. I suggest staying in the upper segment and blasting the pterodactyls. When you see an F underwater, wait for the fish to pass by to grab it, then retreat to the upper area and stay near the middle of the screen. Soon, some pterodactyls are going to fly in from behind you. You can just bomb them or maneuver around them and shoot them in the back to grab another pod. Another F awaits you in the water, but if you're fully powered, just stay up top so you can be lined up to blast the boss. He fires a strange moving projectile, but if you're fully powered and lined up properly, you can destroy his shots before they even get close, and eventually him in the process. Pat yourself on the back, because you just retrieved your first device piece. The future football, or something. You can do the stages in any order, but the next I'll cover is Fire Lords. The first stage is actually not too difficult, but you'll need some tight maneuvering skills to make it through. If you touch any of the gray sections, you'll die, so be careful. If you're fully powered up from Reptile's stage, this level isn't too bad. If not, you might be in for some trouble. Aim for the middle segment of the first group of enemies to score an F. Just stay in the center when you're able to and keep firing. One of the hands that rises up will drop an F. When the level opens up a bit, bear right to deal with the next group of foes, then flow back to center. The next group of enemies will score you both another F and a B. Hang back and destroy the next group of foes before progressing. If you don't have a left pod, the next section is rough due to the small amount of space you can move around in. If you don't have a pod, wait for the hands to go under the lava, then pass by if you can't destroy them first. Get ready for a bunch of enemies from the top of the screen and continue on. Once you've reached the sea of hands, you're basically in the clear. Stay left, one of them will give you an extra life, and you'll have cleared section 1. Section 2 can be one of the toughest sections in the entire game. You may have noticed that enemies fire seemingly randomly, and most notably on the second section of Reptile. Some enemy spawns and shot patterns are entirely random, and this is the level that can screw you the most with it. To start, some flaming bats will fly in, one of which has an F. Then you'll have to time your passing through some fireballs, then blast some pumpkins, the second of which drops a speed up S. They'll start hopping if you ignore them long enough, so be sure you deal with them quickly. Don't move too far forward as a wave of lava will fall from the ceiling in front of you. Now, here's the trouble. Pumpkins will randomly begin flying up from the bottom. If you still have a fully powered pod, aim it downward, blast away and stay high, hoping to clip them before they clip you. Be careful not to bonk your head. When you see a window to make it through, just go for it. Keep firing to take out approaching bats and pumpkins, then angle yourself back to hit the next pumpkin when he starts hopping. Avoid the next fireball timing trap, and take to the low road to blast some weak enemies and more easily avoid lava falling from the ceiling. After the last couple drops, rush forward for a pod, then maneuver in between the fire. Alternatively, if you have a bomb, you can just destroy the lava when it starts falling for an easy escape. More bats will fly up to meet you, one with an F, and then you're on to some heads dropping flames. Stay low and time yourself to pass through the first two, but wait as long as possible on the last one so you can blast the randomly popping up pumpkin heads. Luckily, there's only 2 of them to avoid or destroy here. Fly up and over the skull on a stick, and prepare to find an opening to pass through this fire. If you have a bomb, you can pass through with ease. Hang back and keep blasting, and when you have the option to take the high road, take it for 2 bats to drop an F and an extra life. I've made it past, I believe, what's basically the hardest part of this level, in my opinion. After you avoid another fireball timing trap, the second pumpkin hopping part of the stage begins. Luckily, there's more room here, so if you stay near the top of the screen, they can't hit you. Another bat flies up near the top of the screen and will drop a pod for you. These green head things will drop flames below them. While you can destroy them, they're still an obstacle once destroyed, so be careful. While you can mostly avoid them by staying at the top of the screen, they will force you to dip down, so fire your pods downwards to avoid any pumpkins coming out of the lava, and maneuver in between the 2 of them to destroy it, and continue on to the upper portion of the stage. If you stay up top, you'll be fine for a while. Once the pumpkins start flying in from the right, readjust yourself to the upper middle, grab a couple Fs, and prepare to blast the mini-boss. If you align yourself right, you can blast the upper pumpkins with your normal shot, and your boss with the pod, all while being up too high for the boss's shot and the lower pumpkins. Let's move on to section 3. Super easy stage, especially if you're powered up enough. Just stay near the middle where you can maneuver and blast away. When you get to Fire Lord, line yourself up to just barely hit him with your upper shot, and your lower shot should destroy his minions. Once he and his minions give up, you'll get your next device piece. Next is Possessor. He starts out with a side-scrolling stage, and some of the first enemies to fly in from the upper left will drop a speed up. The next one fly in from the upper level, and then the middle, the latter of which will drop an F. Do your best to destroy everything you see, as most enemies in this stage will fire at you. When you get to the palace-like structure, make sure you avoid the pillars in the lower level of the screen. Eventually, you'll get to these cannons that shoot heads that collide with the ceiling, then explode, firing 2 bullets at a tough angle. If possible, avoid a head in the shots, then angle your pod down and blast him from above. There's a risky F that you can grab, but it's tough to maneuver to, especially with the next head cannon. There's a pod up near the top of the screen, and much of the level is more of the same style of enemies and obstacles. One of the head cannons will drop an extra life. Eventually, a pillar will raise up, but you can destroy it easily and face with more flying enemies. More low enemies and head cannons will impede your progress. Try to deal with them quickly. Just keep blasting your way forward. Eventually you reach the mini-boss, who can be dealt with the same way as the pumpkin boss from Fire Lord stage. Find the upper sweet spot, and blast away. Section 2 is another top-down stage. After 2 rounds of enemies from the left and the right, robots will run at you from the top of the screen and fire on you. Try to stay left to avoid them. One on the left will drop an F for you. Another F will appear in the back left of the stage, but it can be dicey trying to avoid the pillars to grab it. After the last round of robots, an eye will spawn in the hole in the middle of the stage, who will reward you with another pod. From here, stay center and hang back to avoid enemies spawning in from the sides. The ghosts in the center will drop an F, and the ones on the left will be a speed up.
Cool. Alright. Now this part sucks really hard, because you really need to be careful with your movement here. I'm not going to go for the S, I don't care. I'm trying to play it safer than I usually do when I play this game.
Carefully avoid the pillars here. Afterwards, stay center, then shoot left for another pod. Afterwards, center yourself and stay back to shoot the eyes rolling in from the sides. A wall of eyes will greet you afterwards. The 2 middle ones have Fs. If you can't destroy them, avoid them, as they all can shoot on you. Randomly, of course. Afterwards, stay rightish, and an eyeball will give you another pod. Try to destroy as many of the foes here as possible to avoid getting shot yourself. Next, you'll be forced center. Stay back and blast the foes firing at you from the top of the screen. At the end, there will be an eyeball. After you poke the eye, fly straight through so the gate doesn't close on you, killing you. You just completed Section 2. Section 3. Stay up high and blast everything for an F, then another F awaits you on a pillar. Just be careful because foes will fly in quickly from the bottom to hit you for grabbing the F if you can't stop them. Go back up high and shoot everything before you come to Possessor's champion. Line up so you can shoot both shots at his shield, and watch for Possessor's special attack, a faster, tougher enemy he can shoot at you, which can occur even after it seems like you beat him, so just keep firing. On to Emperor. The first stage is top down and probably one of the hardest section 1s in the game. Move around a lot and blast everything you can. Watch for the first center turret that can shoot a very hard to avoid 3-way shot. Some tanks will roll in, and while they're tough, they can only shoot straight forward. After the tanks, hang right to defeat some turrets and grab an F and a pod. After the blue turrets on the track, destroy the thing on the left for another pod, but be wary of the 3-way turret on the right. The tank that rolls into the center will also grant you a B. Hang right, defeat the white things, and more turrets will net you 2 more Fs. On your right, you've got another 3-way turret, and on the left are missile launchers. Do your best to destroy it all. After 2 more blue turrets, it's time for the mini-boss. Without a pod, he's really tough, but if you do have a pod, line up so your side shots hit him, and knock down any possible missiles he shoots at you. Let's move on. Section 2 can be rough based on how often the random shots shoot. At the starting fork, stay high, and then move around and shoot everything. Then stay low, shoot and avoid everything. There's a B up top that, if you're quick enough, is pretty easy to grab. Then you'll have to move upwards to avoid the level. Stay in the upper middle to shoot down the approaching enemies, then at the 3-way fork, stay in the middle and defeat the enemies for an F. Then go low to avoid the stage. All these robots fire randomly, and the last one on the upper platform before you need to head down will drop a pod, while an earlier one will drop an F. Head downwards to shoot the enemy dispensers and more robots. Head to the lower area now to blast the enemies. With some quick fingers, you can grab an extra life. With this mini-boss, make sure you move a bit farther forward than you think you need to, and line up and blast the upper enemies and the boss, while avoiding the boss's shots like usual. This is far and away the easiest Section 3 in the game. There's an F if you're quick enough, and then just destroy each shooter from the bottom up. You can usually shoot down the enemy's bullets, so just work your way up and end it.
Gotta get in there, and that's it. That Shrek-looking motherfucker is gone. And we get another device.
Mephisto has some of the hardest sections in the game. In Section 1, we'll start this. Stay middle-ish and blast all the fast-moving ghosts. When you get to the doors, blast the enemy that appears, and then quickly move past them door by door. Next, duck low to destroy the gargoyles and any of the lower blue enemies. The last gargoyle will give you an F. Try to shoot or avoid the bats that fly in. They have really wild and quick patterns. When you reach a fork, rush forward and go underneath to avoid the foes up top. Defeat as many enemies as possible while staying low, then nab the pod. When the bats spawn in, just rush forward and stay low. Don't go too far forward once you're under the platform, as new enemies fly in from the right. Defeat them for another beat. Avoid anything jutting out of the wall and stay low. Score another F, and deal with the doors the same way we did before. Take them one at a time. Make sure to hang back because some fast-moving enemies will show up to smack you. Stay low and destroy or avoid all of the many things coming at you. Here's the mini-boss. If you have a pod, just align yourself as usual. Don't even follow the boss when he moves, just fire and he'll move into your shots. If you don't have a pod, you have to duck in and out of the safe spot near the back of the screen. On to Section 2. Section 2 is also really difficult. Right out of the gates you have some tough cannons to deal with. Stay center or right, and one of the bats will award you an F. Stay far right and stay in one spot to defeat the eyes that pour out. If you move, they'll clip you.
Last time I beat this game, I had to do this level with no power-ups as well. So... oof, damn. You gotta just, like, pick a spot and stay there. If you move... that's it. This stage is where runs go to die, guys. It really is.
Defeat one of the skulls and prepare to avoid the hands. They randomly present deadly marbles, sometimes twice in a row. My strategy for making it past these is wait for one of them to throw one, and then rush past them. Just make it past as fast as you can. From here, a central bat will drop an F, then pick a side to stick to, and defeat all the enemies on that side. Afterwards, you'll score a pod. Shoot like hell, then duck left or right to prepare to avoid more hands. At the end is a cannon, so don't stop shooting. Some bats and some eyes appear at the top of the screen. One of the eyes drops an extra life, but it moves upwards, so if you want it, destroy the eyes when they're close to the bottom of the screen. Finally, a torrent of eyeballs will pour on you, and you'll need a lot of firepower, so stick to a spot, stand, and fire away. If things look dire, just use a bomb. You're through Section 2. Section 3 is pretty easy, thankfully. Stay high and blast the first round of enemies, then stop shooting. Yes, you heard me right. These next slow-moving enemies only shoot if you shoot at them first, so grab your F and let the next 3 pass. Now lay into the remaining foes. When you get to the statue of Mephisto's face, line up to blast it on his chin. Just be careful of the enemy's weird shot patterns, but he goes down pretty quick. Welcome to the Magic Domain, and it opens with the hardest stage in the game. To start, get ready to stay high and blast the magic hats. You'll get an F. Stay high, then move to the center to blast the skeleton ghosts and score another F. Try to stay high for this next section, as these green coins will randomly spawn from the bottom of the screen and fire upwards at random speeds. Sometimes they pause, and sometimes they shoot straight up. If you can weave in and out and make it to the next section, you'll get a checkpoint. Stay center and keep blasting. There's a coin that pops out of a mountain here. Try to hit it so it splits into 5, and then destroy the center 3 for another F, then destroy the 4 ghosts crowding around a pod. Carefully maneuver around and hang back until you destroy the hats. When you get through, you'll be met with a bunch of ghosts moving erratically. The best way I've found to deal with them is to just stay back and then bomb away. With enough power, you may be able to hang back and blast. Either way, continue on, blasting everything, staying up top. When you reach an open area, stay all the way up top and aim your pod down. A bunch of green coins will randomly approach from the bottom of the screen, so just stay calm, shoot, and progress. As soon as the first ghost comes out, switch your pods back to forward and blast away, staying as high as you can. The boss here goes down pretty quick, and there's actually a safe spot in the middle upper section if you need it. The worst is now behind you, as Section 2 and 3 don't even compare to Section 1. For the last top-down stage of the game, just stay center and some fast-moving enemies will give you another F. Head back and destroy the enemies for another pod, then carefully maneuver between the spike pillars and destroy the bubble launchers. Get used to moving your pods to the sides to destroy the launchers. After you're through, the next wave of enemies will score you another F. Foes will now pour down, so just keep shooting for another F. The middle section is the safest, as when you pop out you can easily destroy 2 more bubble launchers by moving your pods. Hang back, destroy the bubble launchers, and avoid the stage hazards as you go. You'll need to shoot enemies while ducking around the stage, then another bubble launcher on the left will grant you another pod. Destroy all the bubble launchers and prepare for the mini-boss. Shoot him and stay to the right. If you angle your pod to shoot straight out to the sides and move whenever he approaches you, you should have no problems with him. Section 3 can be tough, but if you make it to the boss with a pod, you've basically beaten the game. Stay near the middle of the screen and destroy everything with reckless abandon. When you see the first bucket, duck down near the ground as some fast-moving tough grubs will fly in an arc over you. When you see the Fs at the top of the screen, completely ignore them and take the low road. Dodge between the buckets and keep an eye on the middle bucket, as it'll drop a pod for you. You want this pod, if you don't already have one. Avoid the last bucket drops, quickly grab the 2 flying Fs, and then head down to avoid or shoot some grubs. Now the creepy elephant heads. Wait for them to drop the glob, wait for the splash, then go through. Stay centered to shoot some more enemies and prepare for the last fight. This boss is an absolute joke if you have a pod. Just stay at the very top of the screen, angle your pod downwards, and keep shooting. He can't hit you if you stay above him. Without a pod, he fires quickly, sometimes a lot at once, and he will run around the stage rapidly, so he can be pretty tough. Anyway, eventually you will defeat him, and you will have beaten Silver Surfer. This is the first in my series of how to beat tough games, so make sure you subscribe if this is the kind of content you're into. I'd like to take a moment to thank Harvest Time and Pocket Tim, my 2 Patreon supporters. By supporting me on Patreon, you really motivate me to keep putting out the best content I can possibly make. Link to my Patreon is in the description, and you too could hear me talk about how cool you are, and possibly score some exclusive Cyberphile merchandise. Hey, thanks for watching! Don't forget to subscribe for more Cyberphile content, and if you liked this video, show me with that little thumbs up button. If you liked this video, you might like one of my other videos. You can click right on the boxes to jump to them. Cyberphile, offline.